Zara Mitchell was no stranger to adversity. Born and raised on a Class 13 death world, she had survived the chaos of a planet where life was constantly on the brink of destruction. Every day was a test of endurance and willpower, and she had proven herself time and time again. But none of that prepared her for the cold alien indifference she faced at the Vardaxian Combat Academy. The academy was a training ground for the galaxy's finest warriors, an institution where strength, agility, and cunning were tested to their limits. Here, cadets from across the galaxy, giant reptilians, telepathic insectoids, and hulking creatures from worlds where gravity was heavier or lighter than Earth's, competed for the prestigious title of champion. It was an honor and a privilege, one that would ensure access to the highest echelons of the Galactic Confederation's military command. But for Zara, it was something else entirely. A proving ground. Her arrival at the academy was met with disdain. Humans were rare and most of the galaxy saw them as primitive. To them, Earth was just another backwater planet in the vastness of space, its inhabitants weak and underdeveloped compared to the ancient civilizations that had long since mastered the art of war. Zara's presence was considered a joke. The instructors looked at her with barely concealed amusement. She was a curiosity at best, a distraction at worst. When Zara entered the arena for the first time, it was supposed to be a demonstration, just a minor exercise in hand-to-hand combat. Her opponent, a large and battle-hardened Varkthul named Drexar, was the reigning champion of the academy, a beast of a creature whose sheer size and strength made him a terrifying force. Zara knew the odds were stacked against her, but she had something Drexar didn't, the ability to think beyond brute force. As the fight began, Zara danced around Drexar's lumbering attacks with a fluidity that stunned the onlookers. She wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she knew how to use leverage and timing to her advantage. Her body moved with a precision that came from years of training in Earth's unforgiving environments. She jabbed and ducked, landing small but effective strikes. But Drexar wasn't concerned. He was playing with her, confident that his size and raw strength would overpower her eventually. And then, as she lunged forward, he made his move. With a swift motion, he tripped her, an intentional, humiliating gesture meant to assert his dominance. Zara crashed to the ground hard, the impact reverberating through her entire body. Laughter erupted from the audience. The aliens in the stands jeered and howled, their mocking voices echoing through the arena. Even the instructors couldn't help but chuckle. The idea of a human cadet being a real challenge to someone like Drexar was laughable. The Varkthul champion stood over Zara, grinning widely as he basked in the humiliation he had just inflicted. Zara, face pressed against the cold floor of the arena, could feel the stares of the crowd. Every sneer, every cruel word cut deeper than any physical injury. But she didn't cry out. She didn't beg for mercy. She didn't let them see her pain. Instead, she stood up slowly, dusting herself off with a quiet determination in her eyes. She had fallen, but she wasn't done yet. As she walked off the arena floor, the laughter didn't stop. In fact, it grew louder. Most of her fellow cadets, the ones who had been silently hoping she would fail, felt vindicated. "She'll quit," they whispered. "She's not cut out for this." But Zara didn't quit. Zara never quit. She had known that this would be just the beginning. The galaxy's finest warriors had underestimated her, and that mistake would cost them. The next day, she would return. Not as the human cadet who had fallen, but as someone who had learned from the defeat and was preparing to turn it into her greatest weapon. Zara Mitchell didn't waste time on self-pity. The fall in the arena, the humiliation at the hands of Drexar, was not the end of her journey at the Vardaxian Combat Academy. It was the beginning. While her fellow cadets laughed, went on about their routines, and celebrated her supposed defeat, Zara retreated into silence. She was done with the mockery. It was time to work, to train harder than any of them could imagine. The following weeks were a blur of rigorous, solitary training. Zara knew the alien world she had stepped into was nothing like Earth. The atmosphere, gravity, and combat styles were all alien to her. But she had a secret weapon: adaptability. Her time spent surviving on Earth's death worlds, a place where only the strongest, most resourceful, and most creative creatures could thrive, had taught her how to adapt quickly. She would apply every lesson from her brutal upbringing to overcome the odds. The first challenge was the gravity. On this planet, gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's, making movement sluggish and requiring more energy to perform even simple tasks. Zara couldn't afford to bulk up like Drexar or any of the other cadets. She wasn't designed for brute force but for agility and precision. So she spent hours every day training in the gravity chambers, pushing her body to its limits. At first, lifting weights felt impossible, but with each passing day, her strength grew. Her body became leaner, more responsive. She had to be quicker, smarter, and more precise than her massive competitors. When she wasn't training her body, she was learning the intricacies of her opponent's biology. Zara pored over anatomical data and combat simulations, studying the species at the academy, from the four-armed Krillori to the telepathic Vexthar, who could read minds during battle. She paid special attention to Drexar's physical vulnerabilities, hidden beneath his thick scales and dense musculature. Every alien species had weaknesses, every fighter had a blind spot, and Zara's strength lay in her ability to exploit them. Her days were spent alone in the combat simulators, each scenario more difficult than the last. She honed her hand-to-hand combat skills with intense focus, practicing techniques that incorporated both human martial arts and moves adapted from the other species' fighting styles. She learned how to fight in zero gravity, how to anticipate the bizarre, unpredictable movements of the insectoid creatures, and how to outlast a Varkthul in a battle of endurance. But beyond the physical, Zara also spent long nights studying psychology, how to read a fighter's body language, how to provoke an opponent into making a mistake, how to use their arrogance against them. It wasn't easy. She endured countless hours of exhaustion, bruises, and failures. Yet, each time she failed, she learned. With every mistake, she grew stronger, faster, more focused. She was determined to outlast them, to prove that a human cadet, no matter how small or fragile in their eyes, could rise to meet the challenge. The alien cadets continued to mock her. They saw her as nothing more than a curiosity. But Zara ignored their insults. Each barb only fueled her determination. They underestimated her, and that was a mistake. The Academy's final trial, the crown match, was fast approaching, and she knew it would be her moment to shine. Zara had no intention of retreating from this challenge. She would enter that arena not as the fallen human cadet they mocked, but as someone who had fought and earned the right to stand among them as an equal. The next time she stepped into the arena, she would be ready. And this time, it wouldn't be her they laughed at. The atmosphere in the Vardaxian Combat Academy was thick with anticipation as the final trial, the crown match, loomed on the horizon. This wasn't just any competition. It was a battle for supremacy, a chance to claim the title of champion, and the honor that came with it. And in the midst of all the talk about the upcoming event, one name remained conspicuously absent from the betting tables and speculations: Zara Mitchell. The other cadets, as expected, dismissed her as a non-contender. They had seen her fall in the arena, heard the mocking laughter, and assumed she would never have the courage to challenge Drexar, the Varkthul champion who had reigned supreme for years. He was a living legend at the Academy, massive, strong, and virtually unbeatable. In their eyes, Zara was nothing more than a fleeting curiosity, a human anomaly who would fade into the background. No one thought she would dare issue a challenge, but Zara had been training relentlessly in silence and solitude. She had analyzed Drexar's fighting style, dissected his strengths and weaknesses, and prepared herself for the day when she would finally step up to face him. She wasn't foolish. She knew Drexar was a formidable foe. His sheer physicality and combat experience made him a terrifying opponent. However, Zara had learned a key lesson from her life on Earth's death worlds. Strength alone was not enough to secure victory. Speed, precision, and strategy were just as crucial, and Zara had those in spades. The day before the crown match, Zara stood before the Academy's council, a group of high-ranking officials and instructors who would oversee the event. She was calm, composed, and unwavering as she declared, "I challenge Drexar for the crown." The room fell silent. The council members exchanged puzzled glances, clearly taken aback by her audacity. Drexar, who had been lounging in the back of the hall, chuckled to himself as if the notion of a human cadet posing a threat to him was laughable. The other cadets snickered, some outright mocking her for even daring to make such a bold declaration. "Are you sure, human?" Drexar's voice boomed, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. "I'm not known for taking it easy on opponents. If you want the crown, you'll have to earn it, starting with your blood." Zara looked up at him, unfazed by his intimidating presence. "I'm not afraid of a fight, Drexar. You're not as invincible as you think." The challenge was set. The date of the match was confirmed. The entire academy buzzed with excitement. Zara's audacity had captured the attention of every cadet, every instructor, and every onlooker. Some viewed it as a foolhardy decision, a last-ditch attempt by a human who had no business being in the same arena as Drexar. But others, especially those who had seen her train, felt a spark of uncertainty. Could she actually do it? The day of the match arrived, and the grand combat arena was packed with spectators, their eager eyes focused on the two combatants who would face off in the ultimate battle for supremacy. Drexar stood at one end, confident and cocky, a giant of a being with scales like armor, his weapons gleaming under the bright lights of the arena. Zara stood at the other end, small by comparison, but no less determined. She was dressed in simple, unadorned combat gear, her body lean and toned from months of brutal training. The air was thick with tension. Drexar cracked his knuckles and sneered, while Zara's expression remained stoic, her mind already in battle mode. The announcer's voice rang out and the match began. For the first few seconds, Drexar dominated. His size and strength made it easy for him to push Zara back, but she was faster, slipping past his blows with grace and precision. She wasn't trying to overpower him. She was waiting for the right moment to strike. Drexar's arrogance, his assumption that he would easily crush the human cadet, would be his undoing. Zara had no intention of giving him that satisfaction. She had trained for this very moment, and she was ready to show the academy just how wrong they were about her. The grand combat arena was bathed in the harsh, blinding lights that seemed to reflect the tension in the air. Spectators, their anticipation, palpable, filled the stands, their eyes glued to the combatants in the center. Drexar, the hulking Varkthal, towered over Zara Mitchell, who stood small but resolute, on the opposite end of the arena. The sound of the announcer's voice faded, and a hush fell over the crowd as the match began. Drexar wasted no time, charging toward Zara with terrifying speed for someone of his size. His massive fists swung through the air like battering rams, each blow capable of crushing a lesser opponent. The ground shook with every step he took, and his sharp, jagged teeth glinted in the light as he bared them in a savage grin. He underestimated Zara, just as everyone else had. His confidence was his greatest weakness. Zara, on the other hand, was calm. Every movement she made was deliberate, every step calculated. She had studied Drexar, learned his fighting style, and she knew his strengths and weaknesses. As Drexar lunged for a crushing blow, Zara ducked low, using his momentum against him, sidestepping with grace as she closed the gap. His attack missed, and Zara used that moment to strike. With a precise jab to the back of his knee, she disabled one of his legs, targeting the weak spot she had spent weeks studying. Drexar faltered for a split second, his massive body teetering, and that was all Zara needed. The crowd gasped as the mighty champion was momentarily off balance. Zara didn't hesitate. She darted in, using her smaller size to her advantage, slipping under his guard and delivering a series of quick strikes to his midsection. Her blows were precise, aimed at pressure points and weak spots in his physiology, targeting nerves and muscle clusters that Drexar hadn't anticipated. He tried to grab her, to land a hit, but his slow reflexes and her speed made him miss time and time again. Drexar roared in frustration, swiping his claws through the air in an attempt to corner her, But Zara was everywhere at once, darting, weaving, striking. Each move was a blur, her training paying off in the heat of the moment. She wasn't fighting with the brute force that Drexar had mastered. She was using wit, agility, and strategy to systematically dismantle him. Then, it happened. Drexar made a fatal mistake. In his fury, he overextended, reaching for Zara with a wild swing. He left himself vulnerable. Zara seized the opportunity. With a swift, precise maneuver, she ducked under his arm and slid behind him, grabbing hold of his massive shoulder and delivering a pressure point strike to the back of his neck. The blow wasn't intended to kill, it was meant to incapacitate. Drexar's eyes widened in shock as his body locked up, his muscles seizing, and the mighty champion collapsed to the ground, defeated in a matter of seconds. The arena fell silent, the roar of laughter that had echoed when Zara had fallen in. The previous match was gone. There was no mocking now, only stunned disbelief. Zara stood above Drexar, panting, her chest rising and falling with exertion. She had done it. She had toppled the invincible champion, taken his crown, and silenced the entire academy. The crowd was in shock, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Zara was declared the new champion of the Vardaxian Combat Academy, her name forever etched in the halls of the prestigious institution. But the victory wasn't just hers, it was a statement. It was proof that humans, with their resilience, intelligence, and adaptability, were not to be underestimated. The aftershock of her victory rippled through the academy, and even the most cynical cadets couldn't deny her skill. Some of them approached her, offering begrudging respect, while others, including Drexar, nursed their pride in private. But one thing was clear. Zara Mitchell had earned her place among the galaxy's finest. Her victory became the talk of the galaxy. Her feat was broadcast across the Confederation, and soon her name was on the lips of not just the Academy's elite, but diplomats, military officers, and strategists across the universe. Zara's success sent shockwaves through the ranks of the galaxy's most powerful forces. Humans, once considered weak and primitive, had just shattered an illusion. Zara wasn't just a cadet. She was a symbol of what humanity was capable of when given the chance. As the Academy prepared for its next challenge, Zara stood ready. Her victory in the crown match was just the beginning. The intergalactic tournament awaited, and she knew that there would be more tests to face, more enemies to overcome. But for now, she savored the moment. The aliens had laughed when she fell. They weren't laughing anymore, and neither would they ever again.